Hello everybody and welcome back to our new and improved version of Design Time. This is Carolyn and Dawn again, and welcome to episode 2 of our new series, Little Red Schoolhouse, an old model for a new age. You might remember in episode 1, we introduced the concept of shared knowledge, how knowledge is no longer residing in just one person or an expert, but instead it's found everywhere. It's literally at your fingertips through the use of our devices. And we wondered how schools in the 19th century operated when you didn't have information literally everywhere. So what we see here is a very modern interpretation of a very 19th century experience, including certain modern assumptions about how schools, and not just one-room schools, but all schools should be. This is what we expect, right? When you think of a school, you think of a teacher at the front of the room, all of the students sitting in rows, facing forward, receiving knowledge. And this is what schools look a lot like today, right? Especially college classrooms. Well, in reality, the one-room schoolhouse couldn't possibly have operated like that if you stop to think about what was actually going on there. What we see when we research the actual experience is that it was actually a very modern and active approach to teaching and learning. In fact, the one-room schoolhouse of the 19th century is very similar to what research tells us today we should be trying to make our current classrooms look like. So what was the one-room schoolhouse like? Dawn?
Well, let's take a look. Let's dive in and really take a look. And I want to first introduce you to Miss Mabel. Miss Mabel is a one-room schoolhouse teacher, and she has an entire classroom full of different ages, different levels of education, and it was her responsibility to teach all of them. Could you imagine such a thing if somebody asked you to do just that? I would think I would be very overwhelmed. I would first think to myself, how in the world can I teach both a kindergartner and a high schooler all in one room? Well, this is how Miss Mabel did it. Her older students often helped the younger ones. Miss Mabel herself would need to prepare 4 to 5 lessons per child, which turned out to be approximately 30 lessons a day. Could you imagine? She'd meet with students individually or in small groups in order to see how they're progressing, to know whether or not to provide them help or add new instruction. Each pupil worked at their own pace and would be promoted to the next level when Miss Mabel believed they were ready. She may cycle students through small groups that were 20 to 30-minute lessons for their age group, or while other students are practicing skills individually on their own. So you can see, as Carolyn had mentioned, that this is a far, far cry from what we saw in the clip where someone is standing at the front of the room. There were many, many things happening in the room and had to be in order for all the students to get what they needed. But here's something I thought was so awesome about this concept, and that was that due to the nature of the one-room classroom, where students of many different levels were learning together, it was not uncommon for a 5th and 6th grade student to, from example, have mastered practically everything presented to the 7th and 8th grade students. They weren't held to a certain level, kind of like we do today. There was no box called 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. In fact, they were just by being around the advanced content able to absorb that successfully. And I just think that's a really neat concept. But naturally, as you can imagine, Miss Mabel was exhausted. Wouldn't you be too? But all that being said, this is what actually happened in the classroom. But Carolyn, what does this all mean for us today?
Well, it means a few things. Let's think about what Miss Mabel was doing through a more modern lens with some more maybe up-to-date terminology that we would use today based on research about teaching and learning. So what we're really seeing Miss Mabel do in her class is peer instruction, which we know today is a very effective means of helping less experienced students through the use of more experienced students. We see individualized instruction based on the student's own development and mastery. And we have a growing body of work on competency-based education, letting the student sort of set the pace for how quickly they're able to learn and master concepts. We have both formative and summative feedback so that students can gauge their own performance. They know the progress they're making. They have an idea of where they are. They have group work, team building, collaboration, learning paced to the student's own needs and ability to grasp the content, which again kind of is a echo of the competency-based education, which is becoming very popular. We have the benefits of heterogeneous learning as opposed to more homogenized grouping where people of the same level or the same year, freshmen, sophomore, junior, so forth, are all learning together. You have more advanced students helping the less advanced students. And you have active learning with a lot of activity going on in the classroom and the faculty more as a guide instead of the sole source of information in the room. And so what's fascinating about all of this is that research is telling us that these are exactly the kinds of approaches that we should be employing in our own classrooms. And the Little Red Schoolhouse foreshadows what we now know are characteristics of effective instruction. Now, how cool is that? So in our next episode, we will see how we can be a little bit more like Miss Mabel and employ some of these more active learning techniques in our own classroom. And we'll see you in our next video.